Chevra, we are going to speak again further of the powers of Maschiach and what he's going to be teaching us as the unfolding of the Messianic era is upon us. One of the great weapons that he's going to use, that we're going to speak about today, is called the power of Das. The power of Das. Dat. You might see Das translated as knowledge. We're going to see that Das means much more than that. And we're also going to learn about the idea of heaven and earth embracing. And if we can understand the secret of how heaven and earth can embrace, then really that's going to be the riddle of what Das really is. So let's begin. The Gemara says in Brachas Lamed Gimel Amud Aleph, Mi sheyesh lo das, ki'ilu nivna beis hamikdash. A person who has Das, it's as if the temple in Jerusalem was built in his days. So what's the connection of having this thing called Das, knowledge, and building a temple here in Yerushalayim? What's going on? Maschiach is going to herald an age of great intellectual progress. The progress, like we've seen, won't only be in science and medicine. We're going to see progress in the most important area that's often neglected. We're going to see the most amazing proliferation of Das in the topic of people knowing God. Having Das with Hashem. And we've certainly seen amazing technological advances in knowledge in the world. We can put a heart into a human being from somebody else. Transplants. I was speaking to my wife, who's a nurse. We were talking about the unbelievable advancement that we have seen now, that a woman who did not have a womb, they were able to do a womb transplant, and a child was able to grow in that, a womb from another woman, into a woman that does not have a womb, and that woman was able to be impregnated and give birth to a child from somebody else's womb. This is amazing. This is amazing. The advancements that we have are incredible. Space, travel, we're so advanced. However, the problem is that somehow, with all of our advancements and all of our moving forward in life, we still seem to be lacking one very basic thing. You can go to somebody who's got 5,000 PhDs, and you could speak to him, and you could say, what are you involved in? He says, the intricate details of this, that, and the other. And you could go up to somebody, a very nice fellow on the streets of Tokyo, and you could say, what are you up to today? What's the purpose of your life? And he could tell you of all the things that he's involved in. But the one thing that seems to be lacking with all of our technological advancements and all the advancements in knowledge is the thing itself, is actually connecting to God. And when Mashiach comes, the only topic at hand will be connection to Hashem. Intimate connection, intimate Das with Hashem. And we're going to be so focused on that, everything else will fade away. Doesn't mean there won't be transplants and science and medicine. There will be. But all of it will be directed in one focused beam of light towards Hashem. There will be nothing else. Every single website, every single topic of conversation will be on one thing and one thing only, connecting to Hashem. The knowledge of God. That will be the entire humanity, the entire conversation, all the time. Mashiach will teach us this. King David is a very important line that we need to know. He uses a language, Rishayim, Saviv, Saviv, Yisalechum. The wicked ones, and I don't want you to think about wicked in the terms of Hitler, may his name be erased. I want you to think in terms of wicked being people that are missing the point. The ones who are focusing not on relationship, not on something more profound, but are focused on the externals of life. King David says those people, Saviv Saviv Yisalechum. Translation, they're always going around the outside. they're always like on the outside of things. They kind of are always skirting the main point, the main issue. You could speak to somebody, you could say, so what do you do? I'm a physicist, astronaut, a space physicist, biologist, artificial intelligence expert, 50 PhDs. And you say, it's very impressive. You seem like a very intelligent person. So what do you think the purpose of life is? It's like, I don't know. It's kind of hot in here. Maybe let's talk about it. Did you ever think thinking about those topics? Do you have a soul? Most very intelligent people, if you were to stop them on the streets and say, so what's the purpose of life? Do you think there's an afterlife? That's the one that really gets people like, well, come on, don't talk about that stuff. Like, moving on, you want to see my latest presentation? My latest this, my latest... Why are you so busy? You're so busy with things. And you got this appointment, and this appointment, and this thing, and this presentation, and this presentation. You're so busy, but it's always around the point. It's always around, it's skirting the main thing. If the presidential debate would be on one topic, does God exist? And I'll take it one step further. And is the Torah divine? Let's talk about that. Let that be the topic of conversation. Because if that is true, then the ramifications of that are astronomical. Everything becomes different if I get to the point. But somehow we sidestep the most important questions in life. We're kind of hoping we don't have to, cross those bridges. A great Jewish comedian once said, I knew that I know that eventually I'm going to die. I'm just hoping I wasn't going to be there when it happened. I love that one. These old Jewish comedians are great. Meaning it's coming, I just don't want to think about that. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about death. Not so morbid, I don't want to talk about that. It's what if there's a life after, and it depends on what I'm doing in this life? Wouldn't that make sense to have a bit of a conversation about that? Could there be anything more important? No, we got to talk about we got to be busy. This is what King David means. Sav savis halechun is a person going to be so busy with things, but he's always skirting the issue. He's always talking around it and never getting to the heart of the matter. Getting to the heart of the matter is called das. Making it experiential, making it relevant to me. So if das is not only this connection or knowledge, what is das? Let's talk about das. We have a tradition. Reb Tzadok speaks about this. It's really a Gemara in Baba Kama, talking about the first time you find letters in the Torah. If you want to know what something represents in the Torah, what something represents in existence, if you want to know what it is, you have to see when is the first time that thing shows up in the Torah. The first time that concept is mentioned in the Torah is like the headquarters of that idea. And therefore, where is the first time we find das in the Torah? Because if I could find the first place that it talks about das in the Torah, that is the thing. That's the essence of what it means. And every other time it talks about in the Torah is really just building on that essential thing. So where's the first time it says das in the Torah? Who knows?
It's a tree.
And Adam knew Chava. Of course, it means he knew her birthday, and he knew what flavor of ice cream she liked, and what John Mayer's song she liked, right? What does it mean he knew her? It means that they were intimate. It means that they were physically intimate. And Adam knew, he had das. So if you just say, and Adam knew Chava, okay, he knew her. It leaves something lacking. But if that's what das is some type of a intimacy, then das must be much more than knowledge. When I talk about das, oh yeah, das, knowledge. It must be a lot more than knowledge, because if the first time das is being referenced is intimacy, then there's something very deep the Torah is teaching us, which is that das means intimate connection. It's not something that I just know intellectually. We'll talk about das. Das happens to be related to your throat. Das means that the ideas that I know are emotionally relevant to me. That's das. I'm intimate with my intellectual side. How is one intimate with his intellectual side? The ideas that he knows to be true become emotionally relevant and exciting and experiential. Experiential is another code word for das, a very good English code word for das. Experiential. Because if I were to ask you, do you believe in God? Yeah. Do you believe that God says not to talk in shul? Yeah, I could quote you 50 Gemaras that says it, and even Zohars that say spooky things that I don't want to tell you now to get anybody depressed. So, bro, why do you talk in shul? I think it's lunchtime. Gotta get out of here. You know you shouldn't. Everyone knows smokers. Do you know you shouldn't be smoking? Yeah. So why do you do it? I can't stop. It's killing you. No, the package of cigarettes are so amazing that it's like, could they say it any more obvious? Like back in my day, I was like still in the day where, like the Marlboro guy on the can was like, yeah, you could be like buff and smoke. Now you look at diseased hearts that have holes in them and lungs that have literally, those images are mamish scary. And a guy walks in like, yeah, give me some of that stuff. Like death? I think nowadays it's just like death. Not even may cause, just die. Hashem Yirachim. But why do we do it? Because we know it. It's not knowledge. That's not das, not knowledge. It means das is that it's intimately integrated. Just like Adam and Eve were intimate. They merge together as one. When a husband and a wife are intimate, there is a dissolving of two and becoming one. Das means that the higher part of me, my intellect, and the emotions, the more lower, this worldly thing, become totally dissolved and integrated as one. That's das. Das is a very, very intimate place. When a person's able to make eye contact, that's das. Because I am connected to you, but I'm not emotionally connected. If I can't look in a person's eyes, then it means that I'm like, I haven't integrated it. It's not settling inside of me. Das means intimate connection. I want to read you something from Reb Nachman that the Olam should look up after Nun Gimel. Says Reb Nachman. He starts with a very interesting idea. Iker hoylada talui behei. When we talk about having children, Adam and Chava, the idea of giving birth, hoylada, doesn't just mean to give birth to physical children. The idea of giving birth is more than just having a baby. The idea of giving birth means that I can have something inside of me, a potential, that I want it to be expressed out. I want to, so to speak, give fruit. I want to give birth to ideas. I want to give birth to something beyond me. I want to give birth to a legacy. I want to give birth when a person, God forbid, is an akara, when she's barren. There's an inability to connect to something beyond. It's not going, it's not coming out. Reb Nachman says the idea of giving birth, this is more mystical than we'll go into right now, is dependent on the letter Hey. The letter Hey, the fifth of the Hebrew letters. Bebechinos, like it says, why Yosef, we're coming to this parsha, Hey lochem zera. There should be for you seed. Hay. The hay will allow seed to be birthed forth. Now it's interesting to note, like we just had in the parsha, that Avram and Sarah, that Avram was barren, and so was Sarah. And Avram was 99 years old, and he got his bris milah. And Sarah was 89. And Avram did not have the name Avraham, he had the name Avram. And Sarah did not have the name Sarah, she had the name Sarai. After Avram gets his bris, Hashem adds a hey to his name, Avraham. Sarah gets the letter hey, Sarah. And all of a sudden, Mazel Tov. Mom, it's beautiful, there's a Mazel Tov in the house. They have a baby, Yitzchak. The hey, lachem zera, comes in. And there's now something coming forth out of them. Ad shigila hey hazois. Now says Reb Nachman, ki ikar haylada, the idea of giving fruit, continuation, connection, being able to have something come forth from a person, comes al yedei hadas, comes through das. Bibechinas, like we just mentioned, v'yada Adam eschave ishta, and Adam knew Eve. Knowing means that they were intimate, means they were joined together as one. There was a bonding, there was a merging, there was a total unification together as one. And from that oneness can now come fruits. From that oneness can now come a continuation. That bonding leads to fruiting. And it's interesting, says Reb Nachman, every line of Reb Nachman is gold. That Hashem set up the world in such a way that someone who is a minor, like the Gemara says in Sanhedrin Sanaches on days, a minor, is he able to have children? No. Until he goes into puberty, or she into puberty, there's no ability to have children. What is the most fundamental quality of a child? That they're lacking this one main thing called das. We say that when a child, when they become bar mitzvah, what do they become? A bar das, right? They're lacking das, therefore there's no children. All of a sudden, they have this thing called puberty, bar das, and children. Now there's, everything is now set up that now there can be something coming forth, das. And if we're explaining that das means intimate connection from my intellect to my emotion, what are one of the most, it's so funny, classic kid things? And my wife and I talk about this all the time. One of the secrets of parenting is, especially young child parenting, is the art of distraction. And I'll explain. Your 2-year-old is eating some candy. She's eating a ice cream cone. And she goes to the ice cream and the cone, of course, organic ice cream on some, organic spelt cone or something. And the ball falls off onto the ground. Ah! Waterworks. Forget about it. Over. Game over. She's looking at her whole life is broken in front of her eyes. My momish, my ice cream fell on the floor. Game over, right? What should you do to the kid at that moment? What did I just teach you? The art of distraction. So what do? You say, oh, come over here. Look, we have this new, flashing thing. Or here's this dolly with your stroller. And they're like, okay. Now, does your kid say to you, actually, Dad, we had a connection, that ice cream and I. And I know that you're trying to pull a fast one to get me to go to some other game that we have in the house. Or some other thing, but I had a certain emotional connection to that particular ball of ice cream, and now it's no more. You need to be with me for a little while with this. No, if you can just divert the attention to something else that's appealing to them, maybe another food, maybe a game, something, they will happily move on from the ice cream, or whatever it is. Or their toy house breaks. So then you bring them to another toy. The idea is because the child is not dasing yet. They're not so focused into that thing that it's unshakable. Das is a code word for deep, meditative, unshakable consciousness. Deep, unshakable, meditative consciousness. When a person is at bar das, he is so zoned in to life. His intellect is very real to him. And therefore why do we do anything in life? I'll tell you, because we're emotional about it. Emotions actually move us to do stuff. The intellect doesn't move you. Because like we just said, a guy could know that smoking is bad, but he doesn't stop it. A guy could know that he shouldn't talk in shul, but he doesn't do a thing about it. Emotions move you. Emotions get you revved up. So we generally live in a very emotional, emotive world. Whatever just feels good, we just do that. That's not so good because emotions can run wild and get us to do anything. Intellect knows right from wrong, and the intellect is able to, with das, become relevant, and we become emotionally pumped up about good intellectual decisions. But without das, then we could hear something intellectual. We could all hear the shir right now and know about being more connected to the intellectually integrated ideas of my life. And then very simply, just the second everything's over, get on the thing. Oh, Patty Mahomes, watch this, boys, 60 yards, did you see that? Why are you so excited about that? You were totally learning about getting into a state of meditative consciousness. Maybe think about something right now that you know is intellectually true, but emotionally you're not being real with yourself. Think about that. Is there anything in your life now that I know intellectually, but I'm not making it me? Like we say, if it's true, make it you. If something is true intellectually, you need to make that you. Why don't we? A lack of das. Because our das is out the window. We're not intimate. Think back to Adam and Eve. We're not intimate. We haven't yet bonded and lost our identity between our intellect and our emotions. We've split them. That's why the Kotzker Rebbe, when they asked him, what's the greatest distance in the world? He said, between heaven and earth. And they asked him, well, how far is that? He said, it's 1 arm's breadth. And they said, 1 arm's breadth between heaven and earth? He said, yeah, it's the distance between your head and your heart. It's 1 arm. Because to actually get something that you know up here into your heart and live with it is like bridging heaven and earth. But das is the secret. Maschiach will teach us about das, and already now our goal is to make things real. If you know something to be true, make it you. One of the best ways to do this is pick something that you know is true and try and focus on it. And try and get into that place that you become emotionally excited about it. Be intimate with it. Now, why is das, like we mentioned in the beginning of Shir, that very thing that's going to build the Beis HaMikdash? Because what is the temple? The temple is the place where heaven kisses earth. It's the place where heaven and earth meet. It's the joining point where, so to speak, the higher world, which is your intellect, comes into this world, your emotional, relevant world, and they come together as one. That Hashem and you join together. Das is the link. That's why das is signified by the letter Vav. That's why das, like Adam and Eve, the Vav is that part of Adam that's joining together the letter Vav with Chava. A unification. Even the letter Vav connects the top of the line to the bottom of the line. There's a unification happening. The Beis HaMikdash is the place where there's a joining together, a unification. That where what I know and what I feel become one, and I become authentic with my true life. And when I have das, I can't get my true ideas out of my mind. I become crazy about them. And we'll end with this point. The Rambam says, how do you know you really love God? He says that you can't stop thinking about Him all the time. He compares it to a guy that's mamish in love with a girl. You know, you see a guy who's in love. So what does he tell? You start walking on the streets, he's like all googly-eyed. He starts hearing a song, he's like, oh, that's our song. He sees a tree, the way the weeping willow billows like her hair. He sees a black crow, her hair is black, it's so nice. He sees like a ladybug, the antennae of the ladybug, it's like, reminds me of, two of her earrings. It's like, bro, you're nuts. It's like, no, you don't understand. I see her everywhere. A person who's really in love with God, who has das, will never be able to get God out of his mind because he becomes totally unified. Das means connection, means intimate connection, that we're going to be walking around with Maschiach totally integrated with that reality. We should be Zayach to be B'nai Das, and with that to see Mashiach Tzidkeinu B'mehera V'yameinu. Amen. Amen. Asher Koyach Chevra.